Fellas, UFC 293 is an absolutely dreadful card. It is horrible, but the co-main event and the main event are actually decent fights. So today, we're going to be doing a breakdown and prediction on those two fights. Please let me know your own takes. Please let me know your predictions. And if you agree with anything in this video. And yeah, we're just going to go straight in there with the co-main event of Alexander Volkov versus Tuivasa. I've got Alexander Volkov winning this on points. The 6'9" scary Russian versus the short, fat Australian. I've got the Russian winning this one. We've seen in the past couple of fights that Tuivasa doesn't really tend to do well against tall, rangy opponents like Cyril Gane and Pavlovich. And I know Pavlovich is more of a steamrolling boxer, but still, you know, he's still tall and rangy. Whereas Volkov tends to do well against short, fat opponents, up until he got knocked out by Derek Lewis, which I know he still got knocked out. I'm not trying to say he didn't, but up until that fight, he was kind of beating Derek Lewis. He just beat Rosenstrike by first round TKO. He just beat Alexander Romanov by first round TKO, which are both short, fat opponents. And the best person that Tuivasa has beaten is Derek Lewis. The best person Tuivasa has beaten is Derek Lewis. That's how he kind of got all these big opportunities. The other relevant win that you can kind of say is that he did beat Stefan Struve, who is the tallest fighter in UFC. And, well, now it's Alexander Volkov, but he was the tallest fighter in UFC, and he knocked him out in the first round. So it kind of shows that Tuivasa can, you know, he can hit the tall people. And he did go on a five-round knockout streak. But I've still got Alexander Volkov. He's experienced. I believe he has more fights than Tuivasa in the UFC. They both joined around the same time, 2016, 2017, whenever. But I've got Alexander Volkov winning this. Marcin Tybura, another example of a short, fat opponent that Alexander Volkov beat. Alexander Volkov, again, neither of them are good enough to lay in the top of the division. They both lost to Cyril Gane. What's his name? Alexander Volkov's last loss was Tom Aspinall, which is no shame because I'm sure Tom Aspinall would finish Tuivasa as well. The only similarity they have with, well, the only difference they have with Derek Lewis is that, you know, one lost to Derek Lewis and one beat him, but Alexander Volkov was dominating Derek Lewis, let's be honest. Until the knockout, he was dominating Derek Lewis. They've both got wins over Greg Hardy. But I've got Alexander Volkov winning. I think he's going to keep Tuivasa away with range. Tuivasa's not really going to be able to land anything, and I can see Alexander Volkov just beating him up, keeping him at range and finding a point decision. Tuivasa has a puncher's chance in this fight. Like a lot of the fights that Tuivasa has, he's got a puncher's chance. If he lands a big one, a big overhand right, that's his best shot at winning the fight. But yeah, I don't see any other way where Tuivasa, maybe he gets him in the clinch and lands something there. But I've got Volkov winning this. He's too experienced. He's too tall for Tuivasa. Tuivasa's been finished in his last two. Alexander Volkov is coming off two first-round finishes, as in he finished the opponents. He's more experienced as Volkov. I think Tuivasa's going to lose again. I think Volkov's going to keep him at range, beat him up with some kicks, jab his head off, and he's coming off two impressive wins. I don't see Tuivasa winning this fight at all. Again, maybe unless he lands something big, and it's not like, I know the crowd are going to be cheering for Tuivasa, so in that sense he does have an advantage, but Alexander Volkov has been in there many times. He's been in there in UFC London against Aspinall. He's been in front of a crowd so many times. I don't think the crowd's going to bother Alexander Volkov, who's been in front of a crowd for many times. Yeah, I've got Alexander Volkov winning this fight by points. Maybe he even finishes him because, like I said, he is on a bit of a finishing streak right now, coming off two finishes. But I think stylistically, this is a very good fight for Alexander Volkov. Tuivasa, man, listen, he's again got a puncher's chance. Maybe he sleeps Volkov in the first round and I'm wrong, but I've got Volkov winning this, keeps him away with range, gets a point decision win, maybe even manages to finish Tuivasa, but I don't think that'll happen. I don't think he'll finish him, and if he was to finish him, it would be in the later rounds like Cyril Gane did, but I've got Alexander Volkov winning. Next up we have the main event, Adesanya versus Strickland, and I've got Adesanya winning by first round knockout. I think it's going to be a first-round knockout for Adesanya. The only thing that scares me is that maybe Adesanya's going to kind of force the finish too much. Maybe Adesanya's going to try, because obviously everyone thinks that Adesanya's going to beat Strickland, right? There's very, very few people that genuinely believe that Sean Strickland is going to beat Adesanya. So maybe Adesanya, he might try and go for the finish, and we've seen a lot of times in combat sports that when you try and go for the finish, it never actually works out in your favour. So maybe Adesanya, maybe he tries going for the finish too much, but apart from that, if he just does what he normally does, counter punches, because Sean Strickland, I think favourable. It's a very, very favourable fight for Adesanya in stylistically. So I've got Adesanya winning this by knockout, and I think it'll be in the first round. I think Adesanya, he's one of the best strikers in the UFC. I think he's too good for this. The press conference, however, 100% a win to Sean Strickland. You know, Sean Strickland, it's kind of the classic China versus USA thing. I got Sean Strickland winning the press conference. I think the press conference should be pay-per-view personally. That should be the real pay-per-view, not the card, because the card is dreadful. So I've got Sean Strickland walking out there doing the same. That's the thing. Another thing I've noticed about Sean Strickland is the same style every fight. Now, it does work against some opponents like Abbas Magomedov or a Brendan Allen or something like that, but it's not going to work against Adesanya. He doesn't change his stance or style, whether it's against Alex Pereira, Abbas Magomedov, Israel Adesanya. It's going to be the same stance every fight, and I think Adesanya's going to capitalise on that and beat him. And plus, who really has Sean Strickland beaten? Like, to get this title shot, he's beaten Abbas Magomedov, who, to be honest, Abbas Magomedov was winning that first round up until, well, and then he lost the gas tank. His gas tank completely went out the record, but I think, yeah, like, Adesanya's consistently beat champion-level opponents. He's beaten Jared Cannonier, Whittaker, Pereira, anyone else, Vettori. You can bring all those people up. The best person that Whittaker's beaten recently is Abbas Magomedov. Jack Hermanson, maybe, I don't know, Brendan Allen. Like, who is Sean Strickland really beat? He got knocked out in the first round against Pereira. He lost to Jared Cannonier. Now, I know that Jared Cannonier arguably did win that fight, but still, not Cannonier. Yeah, I mean, Strickland arguably won that fight, but he lost to Cannonier. I think he doesn't even really deserve a title shot. Like, I'm not saying I don't want to see the fight because I want to see the press conference, don't get me wrong, but he's not really beating a top opponent to deserve to earn that title shot. So I've got Adesanya winning this. I think it's going to be a bit of a mismatch. But yeah, there's not even a grappling threat from Strickland. He never uses grappling in the first place. If he was to use grappling, he should have used it against Pereira, who was new to the UFC and had literally zero grappling at the time. If Sean Strickland used any grappling against Pereira, he probably would have won that fight, but he did, well, maybe not, but he would have definitely lasted longer in that fight. And Strickland's made it obvious. Well, he's stated that he doesn't really want to grapple with Adesanya. Now, I know that he's only saying that. Maybe he does tend to grapple with, well, he does end up grappling with him, but I don't think there's a huge grappling threat from Strickland. I think Adesanya's just going to play with him. He's going to jab his head off. He's going to destroy Strickland's legs. Head kicks as well. Kind of like the Paulo Costa fight, maybe. I can see it going very similar to the Paulo Costa fight, but I think Sean Strickland could get finished. I think he's going to walk into a shot, get cracked, and he's gonna get knocked out. And yeah, the Chinese fighter wins again. So I have got Adesanya winning this by first round knockout, and I think he could potentially do it faster than Alex Pereira. Now, I'm not saying he has the same power of Alex Pereira or anything, but I think if Adesanya just stays, he does the normal counter punching, waits for Strickland to come towards him and hits him with a very solid punch or kick, whatever, a very solid counter punch, I think he might be able to get a KO on Sean Strickland. I don't think he KOs him out cold like he did with Pereira. I think he'll drop him and then follow up with some ground and pound. But yeah, I've got Adesanya winning this. So yeah, that are my predictions. Please let me know your predictions. Do you think Adesanya wins? Do you think Volkov wins? If not, who do you think wins? Thank you for watching. And yeah, Team Strickland.